There are moments when you can feel something approaching long before you can explain why it matters, and for days that feeling may have been growing quietly inside you. But the waiting is over now. Because what once felt distant has finally become present, there is no more counting down, no more wondering what the threshold will feel like, and no more preparing for its arrival, because the Lion's Gate portal is open today. August 8th, 2026. And if you have been moving through these past several days with me, then you already know that this date carries a history much larger than a single moment on a calendar. You know about its ancient connection with Egypt, you know about Sirius returning to the sky, and you know that numerology has long given this point in the year an additional layer of meaning. But the question today is no longer how to prepare for the gate. The real question is why this particular Lion's Gate is unlike the others you have already experienced, and more importantly, what that difference could mean for you while you are standing inside this moment right now. Because the Lion's Gate of 2026 is being viewed by numerologists and astrologers as something more unusual than the familiar annual return, this year has been described as a triple 8 year. And that designation appears far less frequently than the ordinary Lion's Gate pattern, giving this date several overlapping layers of significance. So if you are meeting this open gate today, comment 888 and share what you are ready to leave behind and what you are prepared to receive. Subscribe if you have been following this journey through the past several days. And like this video if you are ready to see more clearly what this day may represent. Because the reason this year receives such attention begins with the numbers themselves. Every Lion's Gate already contains the numerical pattern of 88 through the 8th day of the 8th month. And within numerological tradition, that repetition has long carried symbolic importance because 8 is associated with infinity abundance, and the continuing cycle through which effort and reward move into one another. Yet 2026 introduces another 8 into that pattern. And this is where the ordinary configuration becomes something much less common. When every digit in the full date is added together, 8 plus 8 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6 produces 26, and when 26 is reduced again by adding 2 and 6, the result returns to 8, which means the date resolves numerologically to 8 while already containing the 8 of the month and the 8 of the day, creating 3 separate appearances of the same numerical vibration within one date. Numerologists describe this as an 888 alignment, and they regard it as substantially rarer than the standard 88 pattern, because it can happen only when the numerical reduction of the year aligns with the number already represented by both the month and the day. And this is not treated merely as an entertaining numerical coincidence within that tradition, because repeated numbers occurring within an already meaningful date are often interpreted as intensifying the symbolism connected with that number rather than simply repeating it, almost as though 3 currents carrying the same frequency were meeting at one point instead of arriving separately. And when you allow yourself to consider that image, you may begin to understand why this date can feel psychologically different as well, because repetition has a way of demanding attention. It can make you notice themes you might normally dismiss, especially themes involving what you have worked for, what you believe you deserve to receive, what you are still holding on to, and whether you are actually prepared to enter another cycle of your life differently. And the rarity of this stacking deserves attention because an ordinary 88 occurs every year through the simple structure of the calendar, while a year that reduces numerologically to 8 depends entirely on the specific digits contained within that year, which is why some numerologists estimate that this kind of triple alignment appears only a handful of times during an entire lifetime, making the convergence of 2026 genuinely uncommon within this framework rather than simply another annual event being given a dramatic label. Numerologists looking backward identify only a limited number of similarly aligned years in recent memory, and spiritual communities have often treated those periods with particular reverence. Yet there is no simple fixed interval, that allows you to predict these alignments by counting forward the same number of years each time. Because the pattern depends on the arithmetic of the digits making up each individual year. And that irregularity contributes to the feeling that such a convergence arrives, less like a routine appointment and more like a configuration that becomes possible only when the numbers themselves happen to meet in exactly the necessary way. But numerology is only one part of what makes this Lion's Gate stand apart, because 2026 also contains astronomical and astrological conditions that many astrologers believe intensify the importance of this period. Earlier this summer, Jupiter moved into Leo, and astrology traditionally connects Jupiter with growth, expansion, opportunity, and good fortune. And it will remain in Leo for approximately a year, which becomes especially relevant because its presence overlaps with Leo season itself, the same seasonal period in which the Lion's Gate occurs every year. Jupiter moving through Leo is commonly associated with an expansion of confidence, creativity, personal expression, and visibility, all of which already echo the central themes traditionally linked with this threshold. And this can touch something deeply personal inside you, because visibility is not only about being noticed by other people. It can also expose the places where you have been afraid to acknowledge your own potential. Creativity can reveal where you have been silencing yourself. And confidence can show you exactly where fear has been quietly negotiating the limits of your life only weeks ago. Another major shift took place. The Moon's North Node entered Aquarius while the South Node moved into Leo, opening a new 18-month cycle that will continue well into 2028. And the importance of this movement comes partly from the South Node, now occupying Leo, the same sign around which the Lion's Gate is centered. Because the South Node is traditionally associated with what is being completed, released, or moved beyond, while the North Node in Aquarius points toward themes of collective awakening, community innovation, and a broader evolutionary direction that many spiritual traditions connect with humanity as a whole. So the symbolism here contains both departure and movement forward at the same time. One side asking what has reached completion, the other asking what kind of future is now calling, and that tension can be felt internally as well, because genuine turning points often contain grief and possibility together. You may recognize what you can no longer carry before you fully understand what will replace it. And sometimes awakening begins precisely in that uncomfortable space between an identity that is ending and a direction that has not yet become completely visible. And this Lion's Gate is also unfolding while eclipse season is already active, with a total solar eclipse in Leo arriving only 4 days from now on August 12th, placing another major astrological event extremely close to today's portal. And it is unusual for this many meaningful astrological themes to gather inside such a narrow span of time. While these more visible movements are taking place, Saturn continues its long transit through the sky during this year, and astrology associates Saturn with responsibility, structure, discipline, maturity, and consequences that develop over the long term. Many astrologers see this slower Saturn influence as a stabilizing force beside the faster and more expansive qualities associated with Jupiter and the changing lunar nodes. And this creates an important message beneath all the excitement surrounding today, because inspiration may open a door, but discipline determines whether you continue walking after the emotional intensity of the moment has faded. Whatever insight appears today, and whatever intention feels powerful while the gate is open, its enduring value may depend on what you consistently do afterward. And this combination of expansion with structure is exactly the kind of balance many spiritual traditions associate with manifestation that becomes meaningful and lasting rather than enthusiasm that burns brightly for several days and then disappears. And perhaps this is one of the most important realizations available within today's symbolism, because wanting a different life and building a different life are not the same experience. One can happen in a moment of emotional clarity, while the other requires repeated choices after that moment is gone. And this is why astrologers and numerologists are paying unusual attention to this particular convergence, rather than viewing it as an ordinary lion's gate with a few interesting coincidences attached. Because every individual element would already carry significance on its own. Jupiter in Leo by itself could suggest a period of greater confidence, creative expansion, and visibility. The nodal movement by itself could indicate an important personal and collective transition. Eclipse season by itself could heighten emotional and energetic intensity. Yet when these astrological and numerological currents appear together inside the same concentrated period, many traditions interpret their combined influence as more powerful than any single component would be alone. Imagine several instruments reaching the strongest point of their individual melodies. During the same measure of music, each instrument remains distinct. Yet, the experience created when they sound together becomes larger and more resonant than any one of them could create by itself. And that convergence is the reason this Lion's Gate has attracted such concentrated attention. The significance is not contained in one isolated placement, one number, or one celestial event. It is found in the way these separate threads are arriving together. And once you understand why 2026 carries this unusual weight, another question naturally rises. What does an open gate actually mean in the experience of an ordinary person living an ordinary day? Because spiritual language can sound enormous until it is brought back into the reality of your own thoughts, emotions, choices, and habits. Many traditions describe this day as a period of increased accessibility, a window in which the boundary between everyday awareness and deeper spiritual perception is believed to become thinner. But this does not mean that something spectacular must happen to you before the day ends, and it does not mean that the universe owes you a dramatic sign simply because the calendar has reached this date instead. These traditions suggest that intentional reflection, manifestation, and conscious engagement may carry greater clarity, resonance, or weight during this period than they might during a completely ordinary day. And in practical terms, that can appear through something much quieter than a supernatural event. It can appear in a decision that suddenly feels impossible to avoid, an intention you finally state honestly, an old pattern you deliberately choose to release instead of continuing to tolerate, or gratitude you actually allow yourself to feel, rather than repeating automatically while your attention is somewhere else. None of those experiences require an elaborate ceremony, because the idea of an open gate is ultimately less about receiving permission from something outside you and more about discovering whether you are internally ready to meet the moment with attention. And if you have spent the previous days following the signs, listening to the messages, learning what should be avoided, and preparing emotionally for this threshold, then today is where that preparation finally reaches the experience it was preparing you. For this is not an ending, it is an arrival. And arrival has a different emotional texture from anticipation. Because while you are waiting, your mind can endlessly ask what will happen, whether you will feel something, whether you are prepared, and whether you might somehow miss the moment. But once the day is actually here, those questions can soften into something simpler. The day has arrived, and now you decide how you will meet it. There can be relief in that realization, especially if anticipation has been accumulating inside you for days. Because today allows that stored emotional energy to stop circling around expectation and begin moving into participation. Whatever participation genuinely means for you, and beneath all of this symbolism, there is also a concrete astronomical reality worth remembering. The sun is in Leo, its home sign, just as it has been on every August 8th throughout the history of astrological practice. Sirius, the brightest star visible in Earth's night sky after our own sun, continues its annual heliacal, rising near the position of the sun, repeating a celestial pattern around which ancient Egyptian priests once arranged entire temple alignments, and the moon adds another layer to the configuration of this particular year. Because today it is in a waning crescent phase in Gemini, only days before the coming new moon in Leo and the eclipse on August 12th. Many astrologers consider this lunar position supportive of honest and open communication about hopes, aspirations, and what you genuinely want to move toward, themes that naturally complement the intentions many people bring to the Lion's Gate. And you do not need to personally calculate planetary positions or follow every celestial movement in order to understand the significance attributed to them. But knowing that measurable astronomical events exist beneath the symbolic interpretations can provide a sense of grounding, because the meaning that millions of people associate with this date is connected not only to belief, but also to celestial patterns that have repeated with striking consistency across generations. Human beings have been looking upward and noticing these movements for centuries. And today you are standing within a date that carries layers of accumulated meaning, while millions of other people are also encountering the same threshold. This year, adding a numerological rarity that practitioners do not encounter frequently alongside astronomical configurations that astrologers consider unusual even when compared with other Lion's Gates. So whatever you decide to release, whatever intention you choose to establish, and whatever quiet gratitude you allow yourself to feel, there is something powerful in remembering that your experience is occurring alongside countless other individual experiences across the world. Each person arriving with different memories, different hopes, different burdens, and different visions of what they want. The next chapter to become, yet all meeting the same symbolic gate, and across everything we have explored, one message continues to return. Today is not presented within these traditions as a day meant only for passive observation, because the days before the threshold emphasized preparation, reflection, and release, while the open gate itself carries a stronger invitation toward deliberate action. And that difference matters. Many spiritual traditions describe the Lion's Gate specifically as a manifestation window, a period when energy deliberately placed into motion is believed to gain unusual momentum that can continue through the months ahead. But this should never be confused with a guaranteed mechanism for receiving whatever you wish for. The deeper idea is that concrete symbolic action can help move intention out of the private world of thought and into something visible and deliberate, and several practices have become especially common within spiritual communities on this date. Not as rules you must obey, but as possibilities you can understand, adapt, or choose according to what feels sincere for you. And one of the most familiar practices connected specifically with this date is commonly called an 88 manifestation list, a simple writing exercise directly connected with the numerical symbolism of the 8th day of the 8th month. The practice involves writing 8 specific things you want to manifest or invite into your life during the months ahead, intentionally choosing 8 to mirror the numerical resonance of the date. And some practitioners create additional balance by also writing 8 things for which they already feel grateful, placing future desire beside present appreciation. But the essential value of the exercise is not found in perfectly following a format. It is found in becoming honest and specific enough to articulate what you actually want, because vague desire can allow you to remain emotionally distant from your own intention, while specificity asks you to confront what change would truly look like in your life, instead of simply writing that you want greater abundance. Practitioners often recommend defining what abundance would mean for you personally, perhaps through a particular opportunity, a recognizable change within a relationship, or a concrete difference in your everyday circumstances. Once the list is written, it is often placed somewhere. It can be encountered again inside a journal on a mirror, or within a private document that can be revisited during the year. And within many traditions, the physical process of writing is itself considered significant, because it turns something abstract into something that has been deliberately named and claimed. Some people return to the same list during later meaningful dates, including the eclipse arriving in only a few days, or even the next, Lion's Gate, 1 full year from now, observing which intentions have begun developing and which ones may require renewed attention or thoughtful adjustment. And psychologically, this repeated return can reveal something that a single emotional moment cannot. Because over time you begin to see which desires were temporary, which intentions remained important, and how your own understanding changed as circumstances changed, transforming the exercise from one isolated ritual into an extended process of reflection and accountability. And it also protects you from expecting everything to materialize within the first 24 hours. Because manifestation within these traditions is not presented seriously as an instant transaction. Another practice associated with this date uses fire through the deliberate lighting of a single candle. And candle rituals have appeared throughout countless spiritual traditions across history because fire has long symbolized illumination transformation. And the release of what has completed its purpose in this practice, a person lights one candle in a quiet environment, after taking a moment to clearly identify what they wish to release and what they hope to welcome, either speaking those intentions aloud or naming them silently. And while the flame burns, some traditions encourage simply watching it for a short time, while allowing thoughts and emotions to surface without attempting to control them. And that quiet observation can become revealing, because the moment you stop directing your mind feelings you have been managing or suppressing may become easier to recognize. Some practitioners write a short note describing what they're releasing and then safely burn that paper with the candle flame, observing the physical transformation of the page as a visible symbol of letting go. And whenever this is done, appropriate fire safety remains essential, including the use of a fireproof container and never leaving the flame unattended. The symbolism is uncomplicated but emotionally powerful. Fire changes matter from one condition into another, reflecting the transformation people hope their intentions may create within their own circumstances. And according to many traditions, the numerical significance of today gives additional resonance to this ancient symbolic act. Some people perform the candle practice completely alone and in silence, while others choose to experience it beside a partner, a family member, or a small circle of trusted friends, with each person lighting an individual candle and briefly expressing an intention. Aloud, neither form is considered more legitimate than the other. Solitude can offer privacy and uninterrupted introspection, while shared practice can create the experience of being witnessed and supported by others, and both forms have held value across different spiritual traditions and cultural settings. So the meaningful choice is the one that fits your temperament and your actual circumstances, rather than the one that looks more impressive from the outside. A third practice is discussed less often, but connects directly with the deeper themes of the date, and it involves using a mirror as an instrument of self-recognition and affirmation. Traditionally, this means standing in front of your own reflection during a quiet and undisturbed moment, and deliberately speaking to yourself without falling into the familiar habit of criticism. Practitioners may name qualities they intend to embody from this point forward, or outcomes they are choosing to claim, expressing those words directly and without hesitation. And this practice reflects the underlying Leo energy of the Lion's Gate period, especially its association with courage, authentic self-expression, and the willingness to be fully visible, including the willingness to be visible to yourself. And this is where something unexpectedly emotional can happen, because many people discover that speaking with sincerity to their own reflection feels far more difficult than speaking encouragement to somebody else. Discomfort may surface around worthiness, confidence, or the ability to believe what is being said. And instead of treating that discomfort as proof that the practice has failed, it can be observed as information. Because resistance sometimes reveals exactly where self-belief has been wounded or neglected. If looking into your own eyes and making a sincere affirmation feels uncomfortable, you do not need to force yourself into a complicated performance. You can begin with one honest sentence, one affirmation you are actually willing to hear. Because the purpose is not perfection. It is genuine contact with yourself without immediately allowing habitual self-criticism to take control beyond these three practices. Some people work more specifically with the numerological themes of the day, especially when their own birth date or numerological chart has a strong relationship with 8. If your birth date reduces numerologically to 8, or if 8 appears prominently through your life path number. Certain traditions suggest that today's themes may feel especially personal or intense for you, although this does not imply that the Lion's Gate has less significance for anyone whose personal numerology does not contain 8. It simply suggests that people already connected with that number may recognize its themes more clearly within their own experience. Life path. 8 is traditionally associated with resilience, personal authority, confidence, and material achievement, while also emphasizing the need to keep ambition connected with deeper purpose instead of becoming consumed by surface-level success. And if that description reflects your own numerological profile, today may offer a particularly meaningful opportunity to examine the relationship between your ambition and your values, between power and integrity, and between what you are trying to achieve and the person you are becoming while you pursue it. Because achievement can look successful from the outside, while still feeling empty inside if it separates you from what you genuinely value. And the larger symbolism of 8 offers reflection even for people whose personal numerology centers elsewhere. Through themes of effort and reward, giving and receiving, and the balance between material abundance and spiritual abundance that this date has represented across traditions and centuries. And your own life path can shape how you interact with that broader energy. Someone connected with life path. 2, traditionally associated with diplomacy and partnership, might direct today's reflection toward balance in relationships. While someone whose life path is 7, associated with introspection and spiritual seeking, may feel more naturally drawn toward quiet inward reflection than an outward manifestation ritual. 8 may provide the broader numerical atmosphere of the day, but your own numerological pattern can influence how you meet that atmosphere in a way that feels authentic, rather than borrowed from someone else's practice. And amid all the language surrounding manifestation ritual portals and rare alignments, there is something essential that needs to be made completely clear today. It does not guarantee that every desire you express will become reality simply because you expressed it on this date. No spiritual tradition approached honestly makes that promise. What these practices can provide is a structured space for sincere reflection, intentional clarity, and deliberate action, all qualities that can support meaningful transformation regardless of the calendar date. While the accumulated symbolism surrounding the Lion's Gate may make those qualities easier for some people to access with focused attention, and today does not demand elaborate ritual, either if none of these practices feel appropriate to you. One quiet moment of sincere awareness can hold as much personal meaning as a complicated ceremony, because the significance attributed to this date has never depended on how impressive the ritual appears. It depends on the sincerity behind your participation. So whether you create an entire manifestation practice, or simply take one mindful breath while recognizing what this date represents to you, your genuine engagement matters more than reproducing another person's idea of what honoring the Lion's Gate is supposed to look like. And as the day continues, remember that the meaning associated with the Lion's Gate does not suddenly disappear when midnight arrives. Many traditions understand it as a broader energetic period rather than one isolated date, with intensity building through today and gradually settling during the days afterward, particularly while the solar eclipse approaches only 4 days from now. And this means whatever you choose today deserves to be carried into ordinary life afterward. Whatever you intend to welcome, whatever you decide to release, and whatever realization becomes clear, should not necessarily be abandoned once the calendar moves forward, because integration is where a moment of insight begins, becoming part of your actual life. And this requires patience, something modern life often makes difficult, because we have become accustomed to rapid feedback and immediate results. But manifestation, as described seriously across many traditions, has always involved process rather than instant exchange. A seed planted through a written intention, a spoken affirmation, or a quiet decision still requires time, attention, and often very ordinary effort in the physical world before anything visible begins to grow. Today can plant something, but what happens to that seed will be influenced greatly by what you continue doing during the days and weeks ahead, not only by the ritual performed at the beginning. And this brings us back to everything that has made this particular Lion's Gate distinctive. The 888 numerological pattern, placing 3 expressions of the same number into one date. Jupiter expanding through Leo. The lunar nodes entering a new 18-month cycle and eclipse season, already gathering intensity only days away. These threads do not often converge within such a compressed period, and understanding them has been necessary. But knowledge by itself was never meant to be the destination of this journey, because today asks for something more personal than knowing why the timing is unusual. It asks whether you are willing to meet that timing consciously. And your answer does not need to resemble anyone else's. Perhaps your engagement is an 88 manifestation list. Perhaps it is one candle lit with clear intention. Perhaps it is speaking truthfully to your own reflection. Or perhaps it is nothing more visible than stopping in the middle of an otherwise normal day and allowing yourself one moment of complete awareness. What matters is presence, not performance. And this distinction becomes especially important because language about a rare year can quietly create pressure. You may begin to believe that because this alignment is uncommon, you must somehow perform an extraordinary ritual, feel an extraordinary emotion, or produce an extraordinary transformation before the opportunity disappears. And that pressure can pull you away from the very receptivity these traditions value. Rarity should be understood as an invitation rather than an obligation. The unusual numerological and astronomical qualities of a year do not demand that you manufacture significance. You do not honestly feel. They simply suggest that if you already feel drawn toward intentional reflection, the convergence may offer a meaningful context for that engagement. And there is an important emotional difference between feeling genuinely called towards something and feeling frightened that you will fail if you do not participate correctly. So notice that difference within yourself today, because if the Lion's Gate has started to feel like another task you must perform perfectly, another standard you must satisfy, or another opportunity you are terrified of missing, then perhaps the pressure itself is revealing an internal pattern worth acknowledging and possibly releasing. And if today has felt unexpectedly ordinary, quiet, or emotionally neutral, despite everything we have explored, that experience is valid as well. Meaningful dates do not affect every person with identical intensity, and there is no failure in experiencing silence where someone else experiences transformation. Your own experience deserves more trust than an external description telling you what you are supposed to feel. And when you widen the view, another important realization appears, because today's Lion's Gate is not standing alone in time. It exists inside a nodal cycle that began only weeks ago and will continue for the next 18 months inside Jupiter's transit through Leo that will continue influencing the coming year. And inside an eclipse season moving toward another major moment only 4 days away, which means today is one meaningful point within a story that is much longer than 24 hours. Not an isolated event severed from everything before and after it. Whatever insight comes into focus today, whatever intention begins forming, and whatever emotional shift you recognize can continue developing as these larger cycles unfold. shaped not only by what you choose now, but by what you continue choosing across the weeks and months ahead. And this larger context can make the day feel less demanding, because nothing needs to become completely resolved before midnight for today's experience. To matter, you only need to meet the moment with sincerity and allow what you plant to continue developing within the longer cycle already moving around you. And somewhere at this exact moment, millions of people are encountering this same date across the world, each bringing a different history, different hopes, different private fears, and different intentions toward the same rare convergence. Which means whatever you have felt released, welcomed, questioned, or quietly recognized today is not occurring in complete isolation. Collective attention itself has contributed to the meaning surrounding celestial moments across generations. Ancient Egyptian priests once arranged entire temples around this convergence. Indigenous navigators once used the return of the same stars to chart their movement across oceans. And today, millions of people who may never know one another are directing some measure of attention toward the same date, continuing a thread of human awareness that reaches beyond recorded history. And this kind of simultaneous attention is not exclusive to the Lion's Gate, because solstices, equinoxes, and other important celestial events have attracted collective focus across countless cultures, each culture developing its own rituals and interpretations around shared cosmic timing. What distinguishes the Lion's Gate within this larger human pattern is the way astronomical rarity, numerological symbolism, and adoption within modern spiritual communities have converged around one date, continuing to draw widespread attention even in an age when most people no longer need to track celestial movements for daily survival in the way ancient civilizations once did so. Whatever your experience has been today, you have participated in something larger than one video, one ritual, or one private reflection. And as this Lion's Gate gradually moves toward its close, consider what you want to carry forward from the 888 convergence of this particular year, knowing that this exact configuration will not simply repeat in precisely the same form, but also understanding that rarity does not lose its meaning when the date itself passes, because the deeper value may reveal itself later as you observe which intentions begin quietly appearing in your lived experience. Return during the coming weeks to whatever you wrote, whatever you said aloud, and whatever you noticed within yourself. Watch for changes, opportunities, and developing clarity, because sustained attention is often where the meaning of a threshold becomes visible, more than in the emotional intensity of the threshold itself. And you may choose to mark the coming eclipse 4 days from now, together with the new moon in Leo arriving alongside it, as natural moments for revisiting whatever you placed into motion today. These approaching dates can serve as checkpoints for noticing early movement, even if that movement is subtle, without requiring you to invent an arbitrary time for reflection. The cosmic calendar itself continues offering moments of return throughout the rest of this season, moments in which you can observe, reconsider, adjust, and continue nurturing what was genuinely planted here. And if walking through the Lion's Gate across these past several days has carried meaning for you, share one final reflection in the comments about what you intend to carry forward from this rare 888 year. Whatever that means in the reality of your own life, the reflections shared throughout this journey have helped create a space where thousands of people can experience the same threshold together while living in completely different parts of the world. And if this series has resonated with you, like this video, subscribe as we continue deeper into this remarkable cosmic year, and share it with someone who may need a clearer understanding of what today's convergence represents. Because whatever this 888 year continues revealing through the months ahead, the most important question will not be whether you perform today perfectly, but whether you continue meeting what unfolds with the same quality of presence you brought to this threshold from the earliest signs that something was approaching to this moment when the gate is finally open. You have traveled all the way to the point where anticipation becomes experience, and now what happens next cannot be created by anticipation alone. It will emerge through the relationship between what you planted today and how you choose to care for it tomorrow and the day after that, and through the weeks and months still waiting ahead. So, thank you for walking through this entire threshold with me, and whatever you have planted on this day, may you continue giving it the attention, patience, and deliberate action it needs to become everything you hoped it could become.